It's talking about how to be unstoppable when it counts the most, when you're in my courts. As you know, the courts globally are closed because of the martial law. And the United States courts ended when the United States government ended in 1999. So some of the things that you need to be cognizant of is you're going to have to know your surroundings. You're going to have to know that with your claim of the life globally with the court systems for the UPU, the Global Postal Union or the Universal Postal Union, if you're in a different country, the court systems ended in 2001. So I want to clarify that. In the United States of America, when the United States government ended and the United States presidencies all ended in 1999, that was the end of the U.S. judicial system. But you're going to have to know what's going on because, most of you completed Step 7. And you're going to have confidence, right? One of the things that you've got to do when you go into my court systems is you're going to have to be confident, right? You're going to have to stay poised. You're going to stay calm, and you're going to have to really focus because the fiction's going to throw a lot at you. The first thing that you got to know is as you've completed Step 7 and you've completed your claim to life postings, the Port Authority for the transportation departments control the shipping in your venues. And the shipping is controlled in the foreign courts by the Port Authority, otherwise known as the clerk, postmaster, bank, banker. As you know, the clerk, postmaster, bank, bankers, they are the ones who take the money. They're the ones you pay the money to. They are the bankers within the court systems. The judges are mere actors in yellow robes, mourning justice, with yellow French flags on a different plane than you. So they've changed the vector. So knowing where you're at when you go into my court systems is very, very important. You're going to have to stay really focused because the court systems are going to do several things. They're going to force attorneys on you. They're going to put a huge psychological war against you by putting you through psych evaluations, right? You're going to have to stay poised through that. Some of you might have to go through that, right? They want to prove you too crazy to go to trial. That's where your syntaxing comes into place, right? Syntax any psychological questions that may come at you by the shrinks. And in your confidence of knowing that the fiction courts are closed, the attorneys, once you come into the quantum grammar and they know what you're doing, because the clerks work for the Port Authority through your transportation departments and your claims of life are on file there. And what I mean by that is when I was in trial in Grand Rapids, Michigan and Dane County, Wisconsin, the clerk of courts had all my filings from the Universal Postal Union on their desk. Why? Because clerks globally are under control of the New World Order, the Illuminati, the postal system, the shipping war that we have docked ourselves into. Fortunately for you, when you landed into your spacecraft with your consciousness and docked through the birthing canal, through the parents, the mother's womb, and you channeled yourself into the Admiralty situation, when you have a claim of life, your spacecraft, your consciousness entered your body, and your spacecraft now has a license to walk around, which gives you a much different perspective because the actors that you're in front of, they have consciousness, maybe or maybe not, within their vessels, but their birth certificates don't give them permission to walk around. So it really gives you a huge advantage to have a claim of life, knowing that their vessels, their spacecraft, their bodies don't have permission to state a claim or walk around. So keep this in mind. So the attorneys are going to try to force attorneys on you, right? And you're going to have to evaluate the spirit of what's going on in each situation. Each situation can be very different. So really pay attention to the energy that's in those courtrooms. Know that no one is coming to help you, which is great because you've already helped yourself with Step 7, and you get to now be sovereign. You get to start giving commands to yourself because there's no one out there. There's nothing there. There are no governments. There are no courts. It's just a harvest mechanism designed to kill the fiction. Many of you know that David and I met with the Rothschilds in Honolulu, Hawaii in 2001, and one of the things that they said is, Russell, we are going to kill fiction. And I thought about that for a second. I said, well, the fiction people, I don't want to see people die. They're like, well, we're going to kill fiction off this rock. And I had a lot to think about on that. I'm like, I don't like you people, I told them. And I don't want to see anybody die, but, after the COVID vaccines, Well, maybe they did get a few. I don't know. Jury's still out on a lot of that. But I'm not a doctor, so I'm not going to make any medical choices. I just know that in the quantum system, we all made choices through what I did at the U.S. Supreme Court not to get vaccinated, and many of you saved your jobs and got to go to your universities and were very successful using the quantum system, so I was very happy for you. But knowing that no one's coming to help, how do you help yourself? Well, the first thing that you do to help yourself is, when you enter my fiction court systems, is to know that the flags control the venue. And because you have a Title IV Sections 1, 2, and 3 flag on your claim of the life, this sets the venue for you for the Port Authority, so the courts will know that you are under the Title IV flag. You are with the compliance of the correctness. So it's a complex thing, but once you complete Step 7, now you're going to know that you're going to start controlling your words, your word terms in your matrix. And you're going to have to know why the courts are closed, and you're going to have to know why they babble, right? They give you confusion, and their language is confounded, which means it doesn't have the ability to state a claim against you. It's going to be a big mental grind when you get into those situations. So you're going to have to toughen up, right? Know that no one's come to help, and be okay with that, because you already helped yourself, right? You already took control of your matrix. You already claimed your spacecraft as a license to walk around. That's your claim of the life. So it really gives you a chance to really focus on your sovereignty and know that you're going to have to come through some collusion. Know that the fiction is going to do everything they can to hold on. So sure up your mental capacity when you walk in. Be humble, be calm, be very poised and confident. Let the fiction world see your confidence. Right? Tell them about your claim of the life. When you do that, really move into a neutral condition of state. When you're neutral, the vessel doesn't move forward, it doesn't move backwards, it sits in neutrality. In neutrality, now this is where time is suspended. That's why we use the quantum grammar, right? The quantum grammar suspends time because there is no more time. As many of you know, with the end of the Gregorian and the Mayan calendar on December 21st, 2012, this is when we took over the Federal Postal Court, and they gave me access into the Benjamin Franklin bank books, right, in Philadelphia, Pennsylvania. And I got to see where the founding of the country came from in 1775. 1776, nothing becomes law for 1 year, 1 day, and there's 3-day rescission. The money was borrowed on July 1st, 1775, which will take you to 1 year, 1 day, 3-day rescission. July 4th, 1776, the first day they could legally enter into contract, because nothing becomes law for 1 year, 1 day. Knowing syntax is a part of knowing where you're at. So your ability to syntax on the fly, your ability to stand up against the collusion of the fictitious grammar is going to be a very graceful and delicate walk that each of us go through, and I've gone through it a lot for myself. And because you've claimed a position of sovereignty, there are a lot of different levels of sovereignty, as you guys know. There's sovereignty in spirit. I see a lot of people out here, they're real sovereign in their spirit. You know, they're American state nationals, adjective pronouns, and they're sovereign in spirit, except they don't have a flag, so they can't set a venue. So it's pretty exciting to watch, because you know the civil peace flag, otherwise known as the customs flag, the merchant marine flag that you see vertically. I filed the copyrights on that to the United Nations in 2007 with : James : Edwards : So that's how he chose to be identified, and he's the : man. Anyway, that was 2007. That was quite fascinating. It's quite fascinating to see these American state nationals try to use my flag. I just kind of laugh. It's kind of quite hilarious. But when you're dealing with the closed courts, when you win, and you will win, know how to walk away gracefully and humbly. This takes many skills, and it takes a lot of learning. I've had students in my courtrooms in North Carolina that won the case, and as they won the case, they didn't know how to leave the building. I've had people leave the buildings, and they were charged with trespassing because they wouldn't leave the well of the court because they wouldn't recognize the fiction judge, even though the clerk joined with the case. So you got to know these things, right? Really really study these things. Knowing that the United States government ceased to exist and there's no presidents from 1999 on, the last 26 years since then shows you the lack of accountability by the government and why everything's rogue and why everything's fallen apart. Because there are no presidents. It's just the foolishness of the people. And I really feel sorry for the younger generation. I hope they wisen up, get themselves an education in syntax, and start controlling and set up their microeconomies in quantum grammar. So we're going to get into a lot more of that. So you're going to have to stay vigilant and focused on your timelines. Remember, what happens in the courtroom is only a public showing. There's timelines that occur after you've showed up into the my fiction courts, and so you must comply with those timelines both to get in there and to get out of there. So you're going to have to know a lot about that. You're going to have to really stay focused on your desired outcome. And you're going to have to really manifest a winning attitude as you deal with these fiction entities. They're going to have to see what confidence, truth, true, correct, and completeness looks like. As you know, the quantum system is true, correct, and complete, which means that there's a fourfold manifest of what we call the nitty states. Fiction would call it the unity-states, which is the ownership, title, possession, and space, otherwise known as time, because there's no more calendars, there's no more time. In the quantum banking system that you are joining, you enter into three different paradigms: the Earth space banking, your divine space banking, and your celestial space banking. Each function has different sovereign functions within that, and I cannot tell you what is happening in your celestial space banking. You have to hold that energy for yourself. And I'm going to know it by how you manifest your performances in the Earth space banking. So it was pretty fascinating I just went to spoke in Dallas at a Bridge Expo, and you had all these galactic style of thinking that when their consciousness hit their spacecraft called their vessel body, and they were claiming a lot of things in the celestial space, they didn't have a license, and they couldn't figure out why nothing was manifesting in this dimension for them, because they don't have authorization to walk around, But that was on them, not on the claimants here. But very, 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 very fascinating journey on governing your own words and being able to syntax and knowing where you're at in time and space. Thank you guys for everything, and blessings, blessings, blessings.